Hello from the lookout. I'm here. Are you there? Okay, all right. I can't see you, but I'm going to assume you're there. Hi. We're on day 224, walking through the Bible, the 1 Year Bible Project. Thanks for coming along. Yeah, okay, we had a little bit of rain earlier, and now it's just turned into a beautiful, kind of a mostly cloudy day, but that's all right. Thank you for joining me on this adventure. Thank you. All right, today we're starting with Luke chapter 9, verses 18 to 20 and 23 to 26. Okay, here we go. One day, Jesus left the crowds to pray alone. Only his disciples were with him, and he asked them, "Who do people say I am?" "Well," they replied, "some say John the Baptist, some say Elijah, and others say you're one of the other prophets risen from the dead." Then he asked them, "But who do you say I am?" Peter replied, "You're the Messiah sent from God." Good word. 23 to 26. Then he said to the crowd, "If any of you wants to be my follower, you must turn from your selfish ways, take up your cross daily, and follow me. If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it, but if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it. And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world, but are yourself lost or destroyed? If anyone is ashamed of me and my message, the Son of Man will be ashamed of that person when he returns in his glory and in the glory of the Father and the holy angels." So we keep our focus on the Lord, and then we are willing to give up our lives for the Lord's sake, okay? And it says, carry your cross. I just can't imagine what that, in that day, in that culture, because they knew about crosses in that culture. And it wasn't a piece of jewelry, for sure. Okay, what does that bring up in their thinking? And then later on, after they had seen Jesus crucified, after he carried his cross, this must have been a really, really vivid picture of what it meant to follow Christ. Okay, now Nehemiah chapter 3 to 5. Today the work on the wall around Jerusalem is being done by all the people. Nehemiah tells about each section of the wall and who's doing the work. Now when their enemies hear about the work, let's see, chapter 4 verses 1 to 6. Sanballat was very angry. Sanballat's one of their enemies. Was very angry when he learned that we were rebuilding the wall. He flew into a rage and mocked the Jews, saying in front of his friends, the Samaritan army officers, "What does this bunch of poor, feeble Jews think they're doing? Do they think they can build a wall in a single day just by offering a few sacrifices? Do they actually think they can make something of stones from a rubbish heap, and charred ones at that?" I mean, who could use charred stones to build anything, right? Tobiah the Ammonite, who was standing beside him, remarked, "That stone wall would collapse if even a fox walked along the top of it." Sounds like junior high, doesn't it? Then I prayed. Nehemiah prays, "Hear us, our God, for we are being mocked. May their scoffing fall back on their own heads, and may they themselves become captives in a foreign land. Do not ignore their guilt. Do not blot out their sins, for they have provoked you to anger here in front of the builders." Now listen to verse 6. "At last the wall was completed to half its height around the entire city, for the people had worked with enthusiasm." Isn't that awesome? The enemy's mocking and the people are working. Okay, the enemy was trying to discourage the people as they were mocking. But under Nehemiah's leadership, the work kept moving forward. Now listen to chapter 4, verse 10. "Then the people of Judah began to complain. 'The workers are getting tired and there is so much rubble to be moved. We will never be able to build the wall by ourselves.'" It's a monumental task. I can't even imagine how big this task was, and they're getting tired. They're getting discouraged. And but somehow, under Nehemiah's leadership, the work continues. Now here's a question. One of my favorite verses is Psalm 108:13. With God's help, we will do mighty things. Isn't that awesome? With God's help, we will do mighty things. Now, here's the deal. Have you been in the middle of a task, a big task or a project for the Lord, and you got discouraged because of people's comments, or you were just simply tired? This is where good and godly leadership is able to listen and care and keep their focus moving forward. Now, chapter 4, verse 23. During this time, listen to this example of Nehemiah. This is him talking. During this time, none of us, not I, nor my relatives, nor my servants, nor my guards, who were with me, ever took off our clothes. We carried our weapons with us at all times, even when we went for water. Okay, now, a spoiler alert. Okay, the wall took 52 days, which was amazing and absolutely amazing accomplishment, right? They didn't take off their clothes for 52 days, nearly 2 months, as they kept focused on this task. Nehemiah was not standing back. He wasn't just standing back giving orders. He was deeply involved in the work. Now, there comes a point where Nehemiah is forced to deal with unfair lending practices that were harming the people, and he stops them from continuing. Here's the deal. The people were having to borrow money to have food. They just didn't have any money. And they had sold their fields, they were selling their children, and Nehemiah says, enough of it. Okay? And he's been helping people too. Enough. Okay? In this case, they were charging huge interest. They were hurting their own people. And Nehemiah is able to stop the practice, and the building of the wall continues to go forward. If the people can't eat, they can't build, right? And so Nehemiah is able to keep them going. Now, 1 Corinthians chapter 1. Okay, Paul has been talking about some difficult things in 1 Corinthians. Whoa. Okay, today he's going to talk about distractions. Okay, he's going to focus on this thought about distractions. Think of things in life that distract us, that distract you, that distract me. Okay? In today's reading, Paul wants to maintain our focus on serving the Lord, or on walking with the Lord, living to please Him. Okay? All right. Merriam-Webster says that distraction is an object that directs one's attention away from something else, especially amusement. Okay, Cambridge says it's something that prevents someone from giving their attention to something else. Now, listen to what Paul says in 7:35. He says, I'm saying this for your benefit, not to place restrictions on you. I want you to do whatever will help you serve the Lord best, with as few distractions as possible. So in this chapter, Paul talks a lot about being single versus being married, and that single people can give their full attention to serving the Lord, while we who are married must also look to please our spouse because we love them. All right? And so he's saying there's nothing wrong with it, but if you stay single, then you can give all your attention to the Lord. Now, listen to 7:30 to 31. He says, those who weep or who rejoice or who buy things should not be absorbed by their weeping or their joy or their possessions. Those who use the things of the world should not become attached to them, for this world as we know it will soon pass away. Paul is not saying that it would be wrong to own things. Rather, it is wrong to be owned by anything or anyone. Okay? So, it's not wrong to own things, it's just wrong to be owned by, and we have to kind of give our allegiance to whatever that is. Okay? There are so many ways that we can be distracted, or that we can distract ourselves, right? Have you ever been driving and you see the car or even a semi in front of you and they're just swerving around in front of you? And I just assume that he or she is texting, that they're looking at their phone and texting. And it's really scary when it's a semi that's the one weaving around on the road, right? Now, with God's help, let us all identify the things in life that would pull us away from wholehearted devotion to God. And then may God help us to stay focused. So, okay, texting while I'm driving doesn't work. Okay, that sure doesn't work for me. I just cannot have my focus on my phone and on the traffic in front of me, behind me, around me. I can't do it. I've got to be focused, right? Following Jesus requires us to maintain our focus. Well, how do we do that day in, day out, day in, day out? Days when we feel good, days when we don't feel good. Days when we're happy, days when we're not as happy. How do we do it? Days when we're sick, days when we feel good. Well, we keep our focus on Jesus. And we have a focused time that we say, you know what? I don't care what happens. I will spend time with the Lord today. And during the day, I'm going to choose to take some moments during the day to focus on the Lord, because that's where I want my attention to be. So if I'm going to keep my attention on the Lord and not be distracted, it's a choice that I have to make day by day, sometimes hour by hour, sometimes moment by moment, when the enemy just seems to be just bombarding with distracting thoughts. And think about this. Just think about this one other thing. When the enemy is bombarding you and trying to distract you and distract you and distract you and distract you, let your mind ask the question, what's going on here really? Why is the enemy trying to get me to get my mind off of the Lord? I better start praying. I better start paying attention right now. And I can use that temptation to distraction. I can use that to point me to the Lord and say, Lord, I hear you. Okay, I'm going to focus on you. And the more the enemy tries to distract me, the more I'm going to focus my attention on you, Lord. Try that out. I'd love to hear how that goes for you. Okay? All right. Today, Proverbs 21, 5-7. Good planning and hard work lead to prosperity, but hasty shortcuts lead to poverty. Wealth created by a lying tongue is a vanishing mist and a deadly trap. Ooh, okay. The violence of the wicked sweeps them away because they refuse to do what is just. Okay. And then today we're going to read Psalm 32. Oh, what joy for those whose disobedience is forgiven, whose sin is put out of sight. Yes, what joy for those whose record the Lord has cleared of guilt, whose lives are lived in complete honesty. When I refused to confess my sin, my body wasted away, and I groaned all day long. Day and night your hand of discipline was heavy on me. My strength evaporated like water in the summer heat. Finally, I confessed all my sins to you and stopped trying to hide my guilt. I said to myself, I will confess my rebellion to the Lord, and you forgave me. All my guilt is gone. Therefore, let all the godly pray to you while there is still time, that they may not drown in the flood waters of judgment. For you are my hiding place. You protect me from trouble. You surround me with songs of victory. The Lord says, I will guide you along the best pathway for your life. I will advise you and watch over you. Do not be like a senseless horse or mule that needs a bit and bridle to keep it under control. Many sorrows come to the wicked, but unfailing love surrounds those who trust the Lord. So rejoice in the Lord and be glad, all you who obey him. Shout for joy, all you whose hearts are pure. May you shout for joy today. God bless you.